Okay, now I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yes, okay. I'm going to make it so I can't see you guys. Okay, so this is our demo on a half drape. We need you guys to create a half drape that's full size. It doesn't have to be quite as complicated as mine is. I kind of went for the bigger thing so that, you know, those of you who want to bite off a little bit more can. It can be a little bit more simple, like the one that's in his presentation, and I'll flash that one back up again at the end so that you can see that. But mine I did with layers. I did with the treatment that is the collage so that you can just see how that gets done, okay? But we need to use our full-size mannequins, and we need to use yardage that we bought from the fabric stores for our fabric story, even if it's a replacement for something that he has in his collection that you're using, okay? So, oops, go this way. Okay, so we're gonna need these supplies to do this: pin, scissors, tape measure. Little embroidery scissors are what you use to cut the laces apart so that they get to be nice and fine and we don't get all kinds of ugly edges. We need fabric, and you might need some sort of tool or bridle tool or netting so that you can then grow your treatment onto the body, and it gives it some sort of support, or it supports other parts of your necklines or backs or things so that you can grow stuff into that. Okay, so gather up the fabrics to drape and make your treatment with. Keep your picture next to all of that so that you know what you're going for here. That's my picture of my stuff, and these are my laces and my lining fabric that's gonna like help look like my actual picture, my photo. Okay, gather up swipe to help you with drape, shape, and to make your treatment with. Okay, so this one I picked because it's got little pieces of lace that are inset into the seams. It's got a little lace trim that goes around the shoulder. It's got little lace things that come around and help hide some of these seams that are in the hip line. And this red one I picked because I want to grow some applique treatment, my collage treatment, onto a net that then helps it suspend over the skin and helps support my neckline. Okay. All right, so here I am with my mannequin. I'm starting with some net as a base for me to cut up my lace treatment. And I want to leave it loose-ish for ease, like a slip dress would be. I don't want it to be tight like that red one was, because those were more evening wear dresses. They weren't slip dresses. These are something that you can get your body on into easily. So it needs to be very soft and very draped away from the body. Okay, that's what I'm gonna start with. Okay, so here I took my lace, the one that I gathered up in the beginning, and I've taken and I cut it apart and cut it out and placed a section of it on here, knowing that the denser part is covering my nipple, so I don't have to worry about that. And it grows from blue to the white and goes up into the shoulder, goes around the shoulder and to the back and returns to some of the blue. So it looks like the white caps that I've got on my ocean scene. And the skin is going to kind of represent kind of my sand sort of color that's here. But I'm going to pick in some of these little bits of dark, little bits of it, and I'm going to catch in some of this little bit of wave that's white as it reaches the shore. And then I'm definitely going to have these bluey greens that start as my base. Okay. So here I cut out pieces of my second lace that I want to use in my treatment to make sure it is of different thickness or is denser than my first one. Because my first one's kind of light, it's kind of flat. So I want to make sure this one's got a little bit more dimension so it stands off of what I'm going to put it onto. So I'm not piling up stuff that's the same weight and it just looks like a big stacking, okay? You'll stand out on top of the first lace and the embroidery or fine nail scissors to cut around the pattern of the lace. Okay, so here it is. I put it on. I put it around my nipple area again, so I make sure that I've got my full coverage there. Then I start to creep in with some bigger pieces, so it looks like the bigger white caps that are happening down here in my drawing. And then I've got some little pieces that I'm kind of scattering onto the netted area that's aside of the actual first piece of lace that I put on there, and I keep going with some other little pieces as it creeps over the shoulder and down into the back. So don't be afraid that once you cut the first shapes and you lay them down here, you might decide, you know, hey, that's still a little too dense. I'm going to cut out some more. I'm going to cut out some more. I'm leaving skin in places, okay, so that there's skin showing through. I've got a lighter little lace here. I've got a thicker embroidered lace here, and I've got a lace that has sort of an outline to it that's flat in the center. So all three of these create a different sort of texture that's helping to emulate my white caps and the white parts of my photo. Okay, so I'm going to cut apart my third lace to get another texture into the treatment. Make sure this lace is another thickness so as not to disappear into the base lace. Maybe it's a darker color to stand out as well. So I've got little parts of this, and I'm probably even going to cut into it further so that they're not exactly these same size of shapes, but I want to cut something out first so I get an idea to start with. Okay, so now you can see I put some pieces here underneath the bust area, and it's creeping up onto the shoulder. I've cut it apart even more and put some little pieces that I've bumped up against the white here. And then I've cut out even smaller little shapes that are like creeping out onto my net. And that represents, it's harder to see in this picture, but these areas in here and these areas over on the side of the sand and this down the center are kind of like a little darker. They're a little bit more this sort of shade. So that's why I'm trying to get just a little bit of that in there for touches. Okay, so I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, I'm getting a lot of the white, but I'm starting to lose some of my green. So I want to go back, and here I've got another lace, and I want to cut out some pieces of this that's more of the bluey green shade, and I want to add back in some color necessary to look more like my photo. So if you not made it look like your photo, you need to go back and put back in some of the color to make sure it does. If it will stand alone on the net without any other pieces below it, make sure to cut the edges closer than I've cut this. So you cut all these little net pieces out. You might even cut out some of what's happening in the center so that you still get lightness and airiness in it. And you use your little embroidery scissors to do that, or fine nail scissors you can do that with. And it will be lying on top of another lace. It could be cut less fine. It can be cut less fine if it's going to lay on top of something, because you don't have to worry about these little edges. But when it stands alone on the skin, you need to get rid of this stuff, okay? So here you can see I've followed my wavy patterns, wavy sort of patterns, waviness. Getting that coming right back up in here, little pieces and little strips. And I've even cut some of the scalloped edge that happened on one of my laces, and I'm around and pinning it inside of here. You can see now how I put back in the blue so it looks more like my actual photo. Okay, and I took it all the way up through the shoulder and creeped it down into the back. Okay, so now what I need to do is I need to deal with the undermost layer. I'm going to have a lining of this sort of sand fleshy color that's here that can either stand for, in my case with my picture, it can stand for modesty to like cover up and look like it's a flesh tone, or it can also help soften the sort of darker lace that's going to eventually go on top of this to create more of the color of that sand. But you begin the skirt or underlayer that will line the lace over your skirt. An area will be a solid that then starts draping into the solid fabric that you're cutting apart and adding the lace panels to. So you can see I've draped this in panels that start with my princess seam here. I've got a side seam here, and I've got another seam happening here in the back so that I can get total fullness, because that's how full it needs to be. Make sure that you drape each panel with enough fullness to get real volume and it feels loose enough to be easy. your drape should hang freely from the dress form, so it is supported by the straps and not glued to the dress form or pinned tight to it. So I can actually still get my hand underneath all of this stuff because it's being supported by my collage and it's being supported by my straps that are coming from my collage. All right, so now I'm going to drape on top of it. I'm going to drape the overskirt, which here will be the second layer of the finished dress. So overlapping technique is what I've used for joining each of the panel seams of the skirt so as not to get ugly seams, those like rigid seams. So here where I've got panels, I've done that overlapping technique that I showed you from my first video, that one that the lady doing the white laces and putting them together. Then either cut away from the bottom edge to create a scallop. So around the bottom here, I could cut the edge of my lace and just leave a scallop, which is a really nice hem. Or I can add a trim. In my case, I wanted to get some more of those white caps in there. So I added the trim here on the bottom. And always thinking of how I'm going to finish edges and seams. Plan ahead. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to add my layer on top of that, which is going to be my greenish ombre sort of lace. It's got green and white and multicolors inside of it. So you drape the outer layer on top of the first lace, following the line of the lining and first lace that's already been pinned on there, the darker lace, on the dress form. So I'm following this line that happens in the waist area, coming up, down here, here, coming all the way around here. It's connecting all of that. And then I've sewn my panels together, which are sewn with these seams that kind of have a wave to it. You can overlap them if you've got that kind of lace where it can handle that and it loses the seam in the pattern, or in my case, because this was a very flat lace, I have to have the seams in there that are sewn regularly, so I'm going to cover those over with some trim. That's why you've got that blue on there. Okay. My seams have a wave shape, and those curves are what I'm trying to reinforce, all of these curves that happen here, like in my image. I then add more trim to cover where the skirt meets the bodice. So here, and around here, and around the back, I've added some trim so that the finish is nice around that edge. It just isn't a bunch of layers of fabric that don't look so good together. So it looks like the white caps. Again, it's looking like this stuff. It's looking like this stuff, okay, from my photo. Okay, that's spelled wrong there. It says there instead of the. Okay, so now I'm wanting a close-up of this because I've already added my straps and everything. It's pretty much a finished dress. So notice up close that there is air or skin. That's these areas in here where I've left skin poking through. It's cut apart, it's cut out in the center of stuff, okay? Showing in my treatment, so it says light. It means that it's light looking, it's not heavy. Notice how I keep the wave movement in my treatment. All of this blue and all of how I'm kind of placing things still looks like this S curve of my photo. Okay, I want to emulate the movement in my photo. Always keep your photo near you while working on your treatments. Try and balance the elements and the color you see in your photo. So I want to make sure that I've got this stuff kind of balanced and I don't have too much of something. I want to make sure that what I'm using is actually important and is in the picture that I'm looking at. Okay. And lastly, I pulled up the hem so you can see that the lining color I chose not only mimics a model's possible skin tone, but when she moves, it helps bring in the colors from the sand. So these colors that are in the sand are these colors in the bottom here. So I've got like a little darker as the lace that's laying on top of it, and I've got the fleshy tone that's happening underneath here. Okay, the final product. Now try and move your treatment around the body in different places on different silhouettes. So this is my treatment. I might move it higher up in just this neckline and it supports a dress that flows from down there. I might drag some of it down to the hip line and make it more kind of asymmetrical and then have my dress drape from that point. I might do an all over little dress that has this whole pattern inside of it. So there's many ways that you can use this trim, and you guys can like take it and select it in Photoshop and put it on top of a mannequin that you've brought in from Photoshop, a mannequin picture, and just start moving it around on there to give you guys ideas of where to put this stuff in different places and for different silhouettes and different focal points. Move it higher on the neckline, move it to the hip line, and have it grow into the sides or into the rib cage. Have it grow down the body on a collar and grow it into godets or flounces. Explore the possibilities. Okay, and so here I did it with the miracle of Photoshop. I copied it, I flipped it, I put it together, and I've created a whole dress. So you can see what the whole final dress is going to be with my layers and my flounces and all of that. So that is my demo. I'm going to stop recording and I'm going to